Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Tom Wells here. Today is Friday. Happy Friday, May 25th, 2018, 8 a.m. Eastern Time. Your first daily dose of happy for the day, and your first daily dose of happy with the new ebook that's out on a free offer starting today through Monday. So today, May 25th through Monday, May 28th. You can go to Amazon and look for Your Daily Dose of Happy, and the book will pop right up, and you can get a free copy of the ebook. And we've been pushing this for a while, so Tom, I think we're going to expect a lot of people to take advantage of this offer, because once it's gone, it's gone. So this is the only time to do it. So definitely, people are going to. I'm already seeing clicks. I mean, I can see it on the the control panel that they give me that people are already placing their orders. So I think this is going to be a big weekend.
That's great. I was probably one of the first persons that bought a copy. I forgot that you were going to give away free copies, and I went and bought one. But I thought, oh, well, I just helped the cause.
Well, that's very kind.
Yeah.
And
I got so many books lined up to read. I really want to start reading it. I
know. It's one of those things that, especially if you're a regular reader, it's like, okay, where do I put this in the order? But I think what's going to happen is people are going to get the book and they're going to, do the little flip through thing, and they're going to see something, and it's going to draw them in. Because
that's the nice thing about it.
Yeah, the stories are that good. They're really that good. And you read one, like, oh, well, that's good. Well, I'll just read one more. And then you read one more. Well, I'll just read one more.
Yeah, well, hopefully people who actually also want some inspiration about how others have succeeded by what they vibrate with, attracting into their life what they want, and how they did that, and how that just flowed for them. I think that's the cool thing about it too.
It is. It's very cool, and plus we're reading stories that like most of the contributors to the book, like you and I were talking about just before the podcast, are themselves life coaches and therapists and LOA coaches. And they have, reams of experience with this stuff. So basically, you're hearing not only really good stories, but you're hearing stories from people who are kind of right on the front line, so to speak, with this stuff day in and day out. And that kind of adds to the quality of it and to the credibility, I think, too. Because, people always will have that question in the back of their mind, how credible is it? Well, what could be more credible than people who are coaching it on a day-to-day basis? And dealing with all the ins and outs of it, and helping people to get past their lack of allowance and their resistances and so forth. What could be a better source? So I'm very proud of the book. I think it's going to be really, really exciting, really, really good.
Yeah, I am too. Looking forward to reading more of it and getting inspired myself.
And it
can
ties
always
in.
Use that.
Oh, good. Sorry, go ahead. What were you saying?
Oh, I can always use inspiration. That's what this podcast is all about. Yeah.
Yeah, we always can. Everybody can, I think. And yeah, it's a good thing for that. I love the fact that we put out a book that's so positive too. I just love that, because there aren't that many out there,
It's true. There's so many ways in the dominant society that reflect the difficulty and the struggle of life, and almost as if that's just the way it is, and we need to just be honest and let's tell it like it is, And as Abraham said, you focus on what is the single biggest reason why you can't transform. It's like, really? Just because I focus on the fact that I'm suffering, it's hard to get away from suffering? Yeah, that has a lot to do with it, a huge amount to do with it.
And it's not like the stories don't have any struggle in them. They do.
My story does.
Yeah, a lot of them do.
Yeah.
But this is where I think the distinction that Joel makes is really useful. That there is a difference between struggling and suffering. You can struggle after something, and you're really working to get there, and you're like trying to make the change, and you're trying to do what you have to do. But you don't have to suffer while you're doing it. You don't have to say, "Oh God, this is so terrible." You can actually feel good. And in the process of feeling good while you're working through it, the struggle becomes less of a struggle and turns into something easier. And I think that's an important distinction, because we don't really need to put ourselves into a suffering mode. Even if we have to go through a struggle, we don't have to suffer through it.
Well, that's in a sense, what I think that Abraham calls the fourth step. Is the third step is you allow things to flow into your life from your vortex, from this place of your reservoir of infinite possibility. You let the things you want in your life flow to you. But the fourth step is when you get so good I guess is the fifth step. You get so good at letting contrast be in your life and letting that be okay, that you're the little struggle and the little efforts you go through, you're constantly learning from that.
True. Yeah.
It's always showing you, well, I could struggle less if I just would do this, and I could be less in angst if I just did this, and that's huge to get, because of course things are going to keep coming up. We're always going to be feeling that something is out of whack or something needs to be addressed. That seems like contrast, and it is contrast. But are we good at just flowing right through that stuff?
Well, that's just it. And that ties in, of course, as usual, directly to the topic for today, because the topic ties in as how do we, this isn't what the title is, but the gist of it is, how do we get ourselves into that high energetic place and stay there? And I should let you introduce the topic, because you're much better at it than I am, but go ahead, give it a shot.
Give it a shot. Yeah. Well, it occurred to me yesterday, that what's it like to be in the most creative place and the most receptive place to our creativity, and what I mean by that is this thing that Abraham talks about a lot is called your leading edge. What is it? I love that saying, and I talk about it a lot because I am excited to be on the leading edge of what the heck I'm doing right now in this moment, to be the most self-expressed and the most joyful and the most just in love with my life that I can possibly be. And of course, sometimes that's being right in the midst of the contrast, and other times that's just sort of feeling, what are the impulses I'm getting from source to do something right now today that is stimulating, exciting, fun, enlivening, and creative.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm asking, because it's really up for me this week. I'm creating this program that I'm going to offer to my audience, my clients, my tribe, whoever's interested. Is going to be a group coaching program. It's probably going to be 8 sessions long. And the purpose of the group coaching program is to address that very question. What does it mean to be truly in touch with your creativity, with your happiness, with your joy, with your excitement for life, in such a way that you're making choices that you're starting to feel, wow, my life is awesome. It's opening. It's expanding. I feel so free. I feel so good that I feel like I'm tapped into who I am as an infinite being. I'm tapping into that. So that's kind of like what this show's about, what this podcast is about.
Yeah, yeah. And this is a project you've been working on for some time now. What was the inspiration behind it? Why did you decide on this particular approach? Because it's a good one. I just wonder what brought it to mind in the first place,
Now, you mean the approach to address that particular topic?
Right. Yeah. In other words, doing this through a workshop, having the workshop,
right.
Bring in people who are wanting to get themselves into that good kind of place. What inspired that?
Well, it's been pretty much my whole life. I really started noticing it first in college, and I might have talked about this before in the podcast, but after my sophomore year, I was done with all my general ed requirements, and I started to look at, well, so what are these? That means I could take whatever I want for electives. And I said, what's an elective? And I started to look in the catalog and realized there was these amazing sounding classes like Indian mythology or Celtic mythology or acting, or there was a class called Understanding Love. There was a class called Creativity. There was a science fiction class. There was ethnic studies classes. And I started to say, I can take all this stuff. I can, I can take these things that sound awesome and they're fun and they're interesting. And so I did that all through my sophomore and junior year, and then realized that all I really wanted to do in my life was things that excited me and turned me on, because I had spent so much of my life up till then following what society said I had to do to go to school and do everything they said. And now I was in college and they said, now you pick a major, then you get a job, then you raise a family and you go live in the suburbs. No, it was sort of like that though. It's like,
yeah, sure.
that was out there, especially in the 60s and 70s when I was in college. It was, you just follow in step with what your parents did or what your peers are doing. And I was just saying to myself, I want to be happy. I want to be free. I want to have a blast. I want to do things that really turn me on with my creativity. And interestingly, I took a class in how do you get in touch with your creativity right there in my sophomore or junior year. So anyway, what happened was that became the modus operandi for my life. That became the theme of my existence after that was, is it fun for me? Am I enjoying it? Am I doing what I really want to do? And am I expanding my potential as a, creative human being, as a person who's alive on this planet who wants to have the best time possible and unfold all my potential. So, the human potential movement was the big thing back then. Are you self-actualized? Abraham Maslow, a psychologist who was so famous back then, had put out this hierarchy of needs that a human being has,
right, yeah.
that put at the top of the scale, instead of survival, it put the need to be creative, the need to be self-expressed, the need to be in love with your life. He put that at the top of being what he called self-actualized. And that just struck me like, of course, that's what I want to do. I want to be fully self-actualized. So my survival needs, I put down at the bottom, and my creative needs, I put at the top. And that I didn't really, because my inbred way had been to live for survival, as most of us in this society, of course, that makes sense. We would care about survival a lot, but then thriving started to become, yes, I want to survive, but I want to thrive.
Well, that was really appropriate for that particular time. I mean, you mentioned it was the 60s and 70s, which was a time of great change, great upheaval in some ways. And it has sort of a particular aura about it today that may or may not be accurate to what was going on at the time. But it's important to understand that there were a lot of things going on. It wasn't just one thing that was going on. And experimental stuff, like you're basically talking about experimenting, getting moving beyond what society had said was this is the norm, this is the way you do it, and your particular form of experimentation may not have been the most famous kind, but it was one of many that were like that. There were a lot of people trying a lot of different ways of living that had never been tried before, and I think that's really one of the great legacies of that era, is that so many people broke out of their boxes and tried it differently, tried to do something else that was not part of the norm.
Mm-hmm. And so I look at today, like there's so many, for example, I'm in this great big group coaching training program right now that lasts for 10 weeks. And I notice that so many of the people choose a topic that they want to teach or coach on that is pretty mainstream. Like you might say, like somebody wants, say, for example, to coach veterinarians, on how to have a successful business, or somebody wants to, so many people want to coach people on having a successful entrepreneurial business, and they want to teach about marketing, just sort of lots of things that are pretty much fit right into the dominant society, the way people are living out there. But for me, I just have always wanted to ask the questions about the motivation behind why you're choosing what you're choosing. And is it really your highest ambition? Is it your highest interest and excitement and passion, really passion? Like where's your bliss really lie? Does it lie in teaching people how to make better websites, or does it lie in putting on podcasts that ask really profound questions and meaningful, deeper, philosophical, metaphysical questions? Are what's your really deepest interest? And that's different for every single one of us. And so
for me, it was door number 2.
Really? Door number 2. Yeah.
Door number 2. Yeah. I did both of those, and definitely door number 2 was much better for me.
Okay. Right. And that's why I kind of thought you did both of those.
I did. Yeah.
Maybe that's why I said it.
That's probably it. It was subconscious, right?
Yeah. A little bit conscious, but it just came out.
Yeah, well, that's absolutely true. The thing about being able and feeling free to choose to look outside of the norm. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with the norm. The norm is fine. Anybody who loves living in the norm, great. That's, if that floats your boat, then it floats your boat, and that's wonderful. But if it doesn't float your boat, that's where it's important to reach out to other stuff. And I have to say, for the longest time, I did not understand how to reach out in a way that would work. I mean, I knew that I had other interests. I didn't know that podcasting was one of them. I really had no clue about that until I tried doing it.
Yeah.
But I knew that I had other interests, and there were other interests that I could not find a way to earn a living from them.
That's the thing.
I just couldn't think of a way to do it. And so I figured, well, I couldn't do it, so therefore I had to do things the, quote, normal way, unquote, and, earn a more conventional living. And that was the route. And that was the way to success. That was the way to, it was like the old dream, right? You put in the hard work and then you're happy at the end. Right. And then I found that it wasn't true. Okay. And so it became even more important to understand, well, then how do you do the thing that you love? I mean, that was the big question. That was the biggest question in my head, actually, when I first heard about the law of attraction. How do you do it? How do you get to the point where you can be doing what you love and supporting yourself at the same time? How do you do that?
Yeah.
And it's been a long
and for some people
to learn that.
I think for some people, what they actually love is something that does pay in the society. It's already like an established thing. They love to do healing, so they became a naturopath or a chiropractor, and they felt fantastic about their interaction with people. They felt fantastic about the healing that they were able to do with people, and so therefore they found a profession that really did answer both questions of how do you support yourself. But for someone like myself, it's always been, I'm more into the metaphysical side of addressing these questions of joy and bliss and following your bliss. And there's people that are teaching that and they're making an income at it, but it's not a mainstream exactly thing, but it's becoming much more mainstream. But yeah, I really agree with you. That's always been the biggest thing that has come up for me over many years was, so I love this and I love that, but where's the money, in that?
Right.
So I did a job that I worked 100 days a year and made all the money I needed. And then I had the rest of the time off to contemplate and kind of move towards what it is I really, really love. And it's taken me a long, long time to get to the place I'm at now, where I really feel like I'm empowered and doing the work that really is answering the deeper need in me to be on the leading edge of my creative possibilities. And I still feel like it takes, courage or a real focus for me to keep asking myself that question. Is this what I really love? Does this feel really good to me? And then to keep watching how the universe, how life offers me ways to turn that into a business, to turn that into a way of working with people. And I feel like it forces me to stay on sort of the leading edge of being a change agent in society. I feel like I have to be a pioneer who's blazing trails into the realm of exactly what we're talking about, is how do each of us become fully empowered in doing what truly turns our crank, what truly brings us bliss. How do we do that? And money just seems to always be like the funny thing about it all. Well, you got to make money,
Right.
But on the other hand, the thing I'm learning about money is money it really does follow ease and joy. It really does flow in all kinds of directions. And I just have to find, more and more how it flows in this area of coaching, in this area of teaching, and being able to speak my truth and be self-expressed, and yet somehow bring in income from that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I have to say, you said it was something that took a long time. It certainly seemed like a long time to me, because I have been on this quest for 9.5 years now. I mean, I first got exposed to the concepts of the law of attraction, like many people did, through The Secret. The Secret came out actually in 2006. I didn't find out about The Secret. I mean, I kind of heard of it, but I didn't really look into it until November 2008. That's when I first read the book and saw the movie. And from that point on, I was on the new quest to answer the questions we were raising in this particular podcast today. How
Okay.
do you do it? How do you get to where you want to be? And not just on the monetary side, but also in other areas of life as well. How do you get to the kind of idealized health you really want to have?
Mm.
I mean, a lot of people, particularly people who are in bad health or who have severe health issues, obviously that's going to be a big thing for them. But I think it's big for everybody. I would say that health is probably the most important one of all, no matter what our level is. Even if our level of health is good, I think we should be aiming for great. I
Mm.
mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
just my personal take on it. I mean, everybody's going to have their own take, right? But my take is if you start with personal health that's great, everything else becomes possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, foundation of health is so important, and health has a huge spectrum of possibility. Like if you
Oh,
said,
yeah.
okay, what is my most enlightened or my most robust state of health? And then it's mental, physical, and emotional and spiritual, and you start realizing that I can't truly be as enlivened in my body as I want to be unless I'm really, really happy.
Mm,
And to be really, really happy, I need to more and more, or I want to more and more be doing things during my day that are truly stimulating and fun and exciting for me, and that engage my passions and my bliss. What really turns me on? Am I following that thread, or do I feel limited here, limited there, limited here, limited there? This isn't necessarily for everybody either. Not everybody wants to be constantly asking themselves, am I all that I could be? But I kind of feel my personal bias is that I think it's I think it's what infinite beings do. If we are truly infinite beings occupying these human bodies and we're moving through countless lifetimes, or there is no such thing as time and space in the realm that we really live in, then what's possible? I mean,
mm,
we
I think
might
so.
come to this 3D realm just in order to exercise our potentials to be massively creative. And especially in the face of all the contrast that's here,
Mm.
how do you
Oh,
be massively creative when you're just feeling like you can't even get out of bed in the morning because of the health of your
yeah.
body or the health of your mind or whatever?
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't think I actually think of it in terms of, have I reached my full potential and, what can I do to get myself to an even better level of reaching my potential? I don't ever think of it that way.
Uh-huh.
But I do think that's what I end up doing. I end up pursuing that path, not because I'm trying to do it deliberately, just because that's what I do. That's how I end up,
Okay.
it ends up being part and parcel of the journey. Like, yeah, I want to get better. Yeah, I want to develop more skills. Yeah, I want to learn how to do more things. I want to be more successful. I want to be happier. I want to be healthier. It's all just kind of built in automatically. So I don't actually have to think about that part. It's just there. It's just kind of there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess the question is are we sort of stuck in any ways in limited thinking and limited beliefs about what's possible? Because I find a lot of people I know, they seem to be pretty content to do their life in a way they did it, seemingly 30, 40, 50 years ago.
Hmm.
They're okay with the fact that I've got my friends, I've got my television, I got my favorite sports I watch, I've got the favorite, like activities I do during the year, and I think I'll go travel to different places, and I think you know, this is as good as it gets. And I think that's what it comes down to, is that question, is this as good as it gets? There was a Budweiser commercial years ago where, these two guys, they go down to the beach and they start a bonfire and they get out the Budweiser and they sit in their chairs and they look out at the ocean, and then, the byline of the ad was, this is as good as it gets. And I remember thinking back then, is like, really? That's it? That's as good as it gets? I mean, I know that can be fun though. I mean, that's a great feeling to sit down and, for me, in a chair on the beach and drink a beer. But it isn't, as good as it gets. But of course, there's talking about that moment. But people, are, I just like asking people those questions, and I like asking myself that question of what is it that really turns my crank. I notice that I go through books and topics that come my way that just really excite me. And I buy 4 or 5 books in that area of interest. And sometimes I don't even get through reading more than 2 of them because I'm on to a new area of interest. Mm-hmm. And I've done that with a lot of things. Like something for a while will just be so stimulating and interesting, and I'm learning so much and I'm growing so much, and then I morph onto the next thing. But I feel like that's the leading edge of my creative possibilities, is I'm following this thread of something it's almost like the universe is feeding it to me. It's feeding me these new insights and possibilities, and I'm going, okay, wow, what's that, and mm-hmm. It's a feeling inside me. Does that feel like that's my greatest excitement? I don't think I really ask it directly, but I'm always asking that question in a way, like indirectly. I'm always, what really feels like stimulating to me.
It's funny when you were talking about people who are settled into a pattern and they're satisfied with it. They don't really want to push for any more than that. We were also talking a moment ago about the 60s and 70s and how, and all the experimentation and change and so forth that happened during that era. And there was a song that came out during that era. I believe it's by Peggy Lee, called "Is That All There Is?" You remember that song?
Yeah, is that all there is?
Is that all there is? If that's all there is, then let's keep dancing. Yeah.
Sing it, Walt. Sing it.
No. My voice isn't up to it today. I'm not Peggy Lee. Sorry.
Then let's keep dancing.
But yeah, that kind of summarizes it, doesn't it?
Right.
Because it's actually a sad tune. When you listen to the song, it's a very sad tune. It's not upbeat and happy and joyful. Is that all there is? Well, then just let's keep dancing,
I can't tell you how many family get-togethers I've gone to over 30, 40, 50 years where I ask the relatives that are there, so what's going on with you now, and what's going on with you now? And they go, oh, same old. Same old.
Yeah, right.
And then I listen to the conversations and, they're talking about what's going on at work, and they're talking about the stock market, and they're talking about sports, and they're talking about politics, and it's all pretty dry. The conversations seem dry. People laugh and they have fun. I don't want to say people aren't having a good time, but it seems like for me, it's like, gee, really? We've been meeting together here for 30 years and you still feel like you're just sort of counting off the days, of your life. You're sort of just putting in your hours. I'm here on the planet, and of course we're all stuck with a job that's not fun, and of course you just have to do what you have to do to survive. You don't. It doesn't get much better than this, but I'll enjoy this. This is what I got. Mm-hmm. There's something good about that attitude a lot of times, right? Because
sure, yeah.
Just be happy with what is, and
appreciation.
Don't always. Yeah. Why do you always have to push the envelope?
It caught my attention about, I don't know, a few years ago. My high school class had a 40th reunion, which I really didn't want to go to, but one of my friends talked me into it, so I went. Mm-hmm. And it was good to see people you haven't seen in a long time, and see how they've changed and so forth. But as you're describing that, I'm thinking that's what a lot of the conversations were about. Mm-hmm. The same thing had been going on for 40 years. And, mm-hmm. I remembered a number of them who had expressed what their interests were as they were graduating, what they were going to do, and they had done it. And had they enjoyed it? Yeah, they had enjoyed it. They'd had a good time. I remember one guy in particular I talked to, a guy named Robert, and he told me what he'd been doing. I said, have you liked it? And he says, yeah, I really have liked it. And I was like, well, that's good. Mm-hmm. Appreciating mm-hmm. what you've been doing is good. That's a really good thing. And yet, by the same token, there wasn't a whole lot of breakout. There were a few people who had experimented. You could tell they had tried different things with their lives and their career, and they were still figuring it out in some ways. But there were a lot of people who had gone very conventional. Yeah, I would say probably the majority had gone very conventional, right. and nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying it's noteworthy. It's interesting to see because a lot of people choose that, and a lot of people are happy with it, and that's good. Happy is mm-hmm. good. So, mm-hmm. It's not like one is wrong and the other is right. It's not that at all. It's just, it's interesting to see how it plays out. That's all.
It really is different personalities. I was shocked in college to see everybody choosing a major because I thought, really? You really want to be a businessman and you want to do that? or you want to be a psychologist, it's like, you want to be a sociologist, or you want to be a historian, study that, and I thought, well, that's limited. Well, that's limited, and that's limited, and that's just one spectrum, there. So I became this interdisciplinary major, and I got accepted to UC Berkeley to go there and do my senior year, which was going to be my own major, and it was the only one of the few colleges in the country at the time where you could create your own major, And I thought, yeah, I mean, there's something in me that wants to work with music, it wants to work with dance, it wants to work with, mythology, it wants to work with all these things, this creative stuff. And then I ended up never going because with the Vietnam War going on and all the protests happening on the campuses, I just felt I just have to go and be out on the road. I don't know what all happened, but I went to Northern California on a hitchhiking trip, and it changed my whole life just living in the woods up there. And I got introduced to astrology and vegetarianism and yoga and all these things. And I realized there's just a whole other way to live. I don't have to live in the mainstream society. At least that's what I thought back then when I was a hippie, it was like, well, why can't I just live, I'll live on a farm, I'll grow organic food, I mean, to me, it was like the opportunities were endless. And I actually ended up doing that for a while. I ran a health food store and all this kind of stuff. I had an organic farm, lived in a communal situation. And then I found a teacher from India and became a director in his organization. And that was perfect for me. I did that for 10 years. I ran communities all over the country, but none of that would have happened if I wasn't following, for me, the thread of what feels good. What do I really want to do? What really feels like me expressing my greatest joy in life? And that just led me. But I did come up a lot of obstacles over the years of like, how do I really do what I want and still make enough money?
Well, there are also a lot of people. There are also a lot of people like me, though. I mean, I kind of envy what you did because a lot of people like me were just lost. We were just lost souls. And I mean, I got to college and I picked a major not because I loved it, but I didn't know what else to do. And it really wasn't something that if I had been in a good feeling place, if I had felt good about myself, I can't imagine myself picking that major. But I did. And I did it almost by not flipping a coin. It's almost like I was trying to put myself through a torture test. I know that sounds strange, but it's really true. I actually was, I think I kind of bought into the idea of the classical idea of being the Renaissance man, right? Learning everything, being exposed to all the different ideas in everything from economics to philosophy to science to math. I mean, to be the fully, broadly educated man. But did I like that? No, not at all. I didn't enjoy it. That was my way of following the norm.
Yeah,
I was doing what I had been taught is the best thing to do.
Right.
But I wasn't loving any of it. I mean, I really had a hard time deciding what to do next in college, every step of the way. What courses did I want to take next? What where did I want my degree to go? What did I want to do after I got out? I had not the faintest clue what I wanted to do.
Right.
I mean, the major I took on was political science, and I figured, well, that can get you a job as a lawyer. I mean, that's a typical step by step. You start with political science, then you go to law school, you get your law degree, pass the bar, and you become a lawyer. And then I started taking some pre-law classes, and I realized, from my perspective, there are a lot of people who are lawyers who enjoy their careers, and I tip my cap to them. But for me, it was horrible. I mean, from my perspective, everything, especially when I found out that the law didn't make any sense, that made it even worse. But, when I was studying this stuff and I was, getting exposed to it, I didn't have a way to verbalize it, but I realized at like not subconscious, at like a deep level, that it was all about the negative. And I was already living in the negative. So, I mean, I had a certain affinity for it in that sense. But there was nothing attractive about it. And I just couldn't go through with it. So I didn't. I mean, I finished off the degree in poli-sci, but I definitely did not want to go on to become a lawyer. And why did I finish the degree in poli-sci? Why didn't I change it? I didn't know what to change it to.
Mm-hmm.
I was really lost. I just had no idea what to do with my life. And
there's nobody giving coaching about that
no,
then.
no.
And you couldn't go to the school, like counseling kind of department and get somebody to, I mean, you could get help, but they wouldn't necessarily know any better than you, because people didn't see alternatives. There wasn't this idea that, like now, I think so many millennials, they really believe, I know my kids, that, hey, I can do whatever I want. And I'm going to do whatever I want, and I'm going to make money at it somehow, or I'm going to find a way, and I'm sure they're also up against the same thing. I know my daughter, who's a professional singer, she's up against, the odds of her really, truly making it. And of course, in the law of attraction, it's not about odds. It's about her vibration.
Right.
And I tried to teach her that. And she's I don't know how she's doing today, but she's doing a lot. She's accomplishing a lot, and she's making some money, and she's still on that track. Whereas one of my boys, he just decided the type of art he loved as making jewelry, and now he's makes incredible amounts of money. I mean, more than I've ever made.
Very good for him.
That's because fantastic. He's so good. He followed something that was his passion. I saw it when he was a little kid. I'm the stepfather, but I saw when he was 7 years old, these amazing structures he made out of construction paper. And I realized this. I said to my wife, I said, he's going to be a designer. And that's exactly what he is. But he designs jewelry, and he builds these amazing jewelry structures that just are magnificent. Something like you would have expected a craft that existed hundreds of years ago. That's what his work looks like. Just this amazing weaving of gold and silver thread around precious stones and turning them into these incredible things.
That's really
so
fantastic.
There's an example of somebody who followed that leading edge of something that just came to them, right? I mean, he didn't even know, he never knew he was going to do jewelry, but somehow, he was led to that. But he went to school and majored in sociology and got a degree, but it just was nothing for him. It was like, that's nothing there. And so then he started doing the jewelry, and the rest is history. He's been at it for about 10 years now.
Well, you mentioned the high vibrational place, and not only is that so important, that's the one thing more than anything else I wish had been explained to me when I was that age. I really wish I had known about that, because the old way of looking at it, the way that was traditionally taught, was you work hard for a living, you put in your time, you grow your family, and then you retire into happiness. And actually, it doesn't usually work that way, but that's what was taught. And so that's the path that I followed. I would have been so much better off if somebody had come to me and said, you have to be happy first before any of the success is going to be likely to come. The success comes out of being happy, about being in that high vibrational place. I really wish somebody had taught that to me. And I'm glad that kids today are getting that message. A lot more kids are getting that than we're getting it when you and I were growing up. So
and they're coming in with it, like Abraham said, the kids, every generation comes in on the shoulders of the previous generation. So the efforts that we've made have laid the foundation vibrationally on the planet for them to come here and find avenues of self-expression. And I think, like this program, this podcast, that we want to ask the question, well, if someone listening wants to get into that place of being more on the leading edge of their own creative possibilities, how do you do that? So you've done it. You've gotten more there. How have you done it?
One step at a time. It was the only way I knew how to do it. I when I first got exposed to this 9.5 years ago, all I had was The Secret. And The Secret's a good introduction. I mean, it certainly gives you a sense of how the whole thing comes together. But it isn't really, it's light on the details. It's light on how you do it. Not that there's nothing there, it's just kind of light on it. So there were a lot of unanswered questions for me. And it took me a few years before I even heard about Esther Hicks. I didn't even know that she had been originally part of it. In fact, the first version of The Secret I saw was the more widespread one, the one without her in it. It wasn't only, it was literally in the last year that I finally got a copy of the one with her in it, the one that so I actually have both of them now. But if I had heard of her, I probably would have followed up more about her and found her more quickly and learned about the teachings of Abraham more quickly. But because I didn't have that, I was just kind of stumbling along. So when I say one step at a time, I really mean one step at a time, and I don't mean all in the same direction. I mean, like, take a step forward and slip to the side and take 3 steps back and 4 steps forward, and it was that kind of thing. It was just meandering at times, trying to figure out how the heck do you do this. And the one overriding thought that kept going through me was, I'm supposed to somehow feel good when I don't feel good. How the heck do I do that? How do you do that? In fact, it took me years to actually move the needle with some help from my wife. She gave me some really good advice in terms of just going out into nature and trying to move the needle by observing and appreciating nature. And that was the first time I was able to consciously do it. So now I knew it was possible to do, but I still didn't really know how to do it consistently. I mean, literally, it was just like, take a step, find where you are, evaluate it, say, okay, well, what do I do with it next? Where's the next step? And then go find the next step. Now, the good news is, because of how this whole law of attraction community / movement / development has, well, developed, it's now a lot more prevalent. A lot more people are aware of it. A lot more people are more educated about it. They've educated themselves. They've learned it. They've tried it. They've practiced it. They failed. They've succeeded. They've learned more and more about how to use it. And that,
when you say it, you mean law of attraction? Or?
The law of attraction and the principles that are involved in it, particularly the Abrahamic principles. And not just Abraham. I mean, Neville Goddard and Joe Dispenza and all the different teachers who have presented it and taught it and shared it and helped people to understand it. But that increase in knowledge, in human knowledge, has really provided a much better platform than existed even 10 years ago, and I'm really glad about that.
And now there's hundreds and hundreds of people who are going to be offering coaching and programs like I'm creating that are that are continuing to address, what does it mean to get in touch with your most creative self, with your greatest potential, and what does it mean to do the work you truly love? There's people working on that in all kinds of different spheres. And even in going into corporate settings and other settings where people are working these quote unquote mundane jobs and infusing those environments with more creativity, with more interest, with more communication amongst others, more self-expression, more asking each individual within a corporation, are you reaching your full potential here? And if not, what can we do to help you reach your full potential, to be truly making the best contribution to our company? but also, are you happy? But I don't suppose they do it to the point that they encourage people to leave. Although sometimes they probably do. They probably say, you're just not a good fit here. You need to go look for something that's a better fit for you. So those are probably the best companies, actually, because they get people there within the organization who want to be within that mission statement of that organization is valuable to them, and they can align with it, and that's something that I can imagine that I could have done that in my life. I never did it. I've always been self-employed because I always felt I had to be the one calling the shots all day long, so my own happiness was always in my court.
Well, Louise has been doing that with her gardening business. I mean, let's see, how many employees are there? I think there are like 10 or 11 employees now. And she has really, at first she would hire just anybody she could find who was willing to do the work, but she's become more selective over time. And now she has pretty high standards. You have to be somebody with a positive attitude. You have to be a team player and not somebody who's griping and moaning and, all that kind of stuff. You got to be somebody who's trying to improve the quality of what we're doing. And we have a very high level of quality. We're known for it in our area. But even trying to improve it, trying to make it even better. I mean, Donna, who's our general manager, calls what we do fine gardening. I think that's a really good phrase. I mean, we're not just like landscapers that throw a bunch of mulch down and, pull out some weeds and so forth. We do fine gardening, and you see it. I mean, the pictures that Louise and the others have been taking of the gardens they've worked on. I mean, it looks like they were worked on with a tweezer. They're just so pristine. Wow. Very, very high level, high quality of gardening. So those are the kinds of people we bring in, and that kind of person, when you have a group of them, they mix really, really well. They work together really well. They're there for each other. They're cooperating. They're helping. Can I help you with this and all that kind of thing. They just jump right in. It's wonderful. When you have that kind of group of people together, it is a wonderful experience just to see them. I mean, I'm not a gardener. I mean, when like I'll answer the phones, or I do the bookkeeping, I do the payroll, I do stuff like that. But when I answer the phone, sometimes I'm like the backup phone answerer, right? When I answer the phone, I'll talk to somebody, and they'll start asking me gardening questions, and I say, no, I got to stop you right there. You don't want me in your garden. I was born with a black thumb. You want to be talking to my wife, or to Marie, or to Donna, or one of the people who actually do know gardening. But even though I don't have that knowledge and that background, or even that interest, I really don't want to be a gardener. Nevertheless, I can really appreciate the work that these people do. It is beautiful. And I know it starts because now Louise is very particular about who is going to come in. It's not just anybody. It's got to be a certain kind of person. And boy, do we have them in spades. They're wonderful.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
So this question of asking oneself, am I truly happy? Is this truly the work I want to be doing? What did I come here to do? There's people can ask that question of themselves. I like to ask that question. What is it? I don't think I necessarily came here to do a particular thing, but what is my signature, unique, like it's called like a person's signature or their domain, like what is it that you came in ready to express in this world? That, yeah, you had to learn how to speak, and you maybe, you went to school and you learned some fundamental things, but what is it that is unique to you that is no one else in this world could express that, and no one else in the world could do it the way that you do it? And I think that's a cool thing to ask. Some people maybe never ask that question their whole life. Some people think that's not a good idea to ask that question. And other people feel like, of course, I want to know that. I want to know, yes, I'm an accountant, but this doesn't feel like me. It's like I feel like there's something more that I am. And, or yes, I've chosen to work in nonprofit organizations, but I'm still looking for my unique contribution that what is it that, so then some of those people, I think that's why so many people today are creating their own businesses, is because it gives them the chance to ask that question and then say, okay, here's the tool. The tools are out there now to create a business. There's tons and tons of help. How to create your website, how to go on, how to create your virtual business or your brick and mortar business. There's just so much help. And you can keep fine tuning that question before you launch, which is this the way that I can be self-expressed right now in my life? And of course, that's going to change. It might be a different way when you're 20 than it is when you're 30. I'm certainly expressing myself in a different way now than I did 10 years ago, 20, 30 years ago. But this is, I have to say, the first time that I felt I'm finally stepping into the shoes as a life coach of being able to express myself in the deepest ways that I've always wanted to express myself. That searching started for me at about age 33. And I've been, once I quit being the director for this nonprofit, I started to ask that question, what is truly my unique thing to do in the world? Mm-hmm. And it's taken me till, I'm almost 70 to really feel like I'm finally getting it. I'm finally being self-expressed in that way. Because so many other things were taking my attention for so many years. And I felt vague about it. I never knew, I want to be on the land, and I want to be in communities of people. I want to be growing food. I want to be doing this, doing that. But then getting around to making those things happen and making a living at it, while at the same time raising a family, it just wasn't happening for me. I was happy, but I wasn't still doing this thing that was my creative self. Even say to be a songwriter, I've been playing guitar since I was 15 years old, but I wouldn't still call myself a songwriter. Have I wanted to write songs ever since I was 15? Yes, but it's just been getting to that place where I can be creative. I can let myself be creative.
Very important.
It's very interesting. Like what it takes in a society that a lot of us are taught, that you can't do it, that it's, I think it comes from my family background. There was nobody in my family who manifested their creativity in Well, I guess my dad, he was a really famous electronic engineer. He definitely created things for the space program and all this stuff, but was that his greatest joy? I never got that feeling. I
Hmm.
got the feeling he did it because it was what he needed to do, you
Mm.
know?
Yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned accountants in your example, because as soon as you said accounting, the first person that came to my mind was Mike Dooley, who is
Oh,
a
yeah.
major figure in this field of law of attraction, and he was
Hmm.
an accountant. That was his field. He was a CPA. He
Yeah.
when he had a T-shirt business with his mom and his brother called Tut.com, and he actually still has that domain name. That's the website for what he does
That's right.
now. But when the T-shirt business kind of it succeeded for quite some time, but then it started to die out, and he could tell it was dying out. And he said, what am I going to do next? I got to do something. I mean, I've got some money out of this, but it's not going to last forever. What am I going to do? And so he started going back to, trying to get a job as an accountant. And he was
Mm.
applying to jobs and so forth, and he wasn't getting anywhere with it. And
Hmm.
the way he tells the story, you can tell it was not a passion. He was not enjoying being an accountant. He wasn't enjoying the idea of pursuing the career of an accountant. And talk about struggle. We talked about struggle earlier in the program. He was
Hmm.
struggling. He was struggling in a big way. And then he decided to kind of go within and explore, okay, what are some of the answers to eternal questions? And, how can I begin to understand where's the better way to go? Is there a better path? Is there, whatever. He was trying to explore. In the process of that exploration, he came to some realizations and started sending out little tidbits about those realizations to a small email list he had from some of his ex-customers of the T-shirt business and friends and so forth. It was a small mailing list. Today, that
Hmm.
mailing list has over 500,000 people on it, and it's known as
Wow.
the Notes from the Universe mailing list. And it
Yeah, I get
became,
them every day.
yeah, I do too, and they're wonderful. And it became the basis for his brand new career as basically a guru in the positive psychology movement, although he didn't call it that. It was or in the LOA movement.
Yeah.
And he landed himself a spot in the movie The Secret, which I saw 9.5 years ago. So, but
Hmm.
yeah,
Hmm.
I mean, Mike Dooley was an accountant, for goodness sake. And he did exactly what you talked about. He said, I don't really want to do this, but I don't know what else to do. And then he
Yeah.
just kind of followed his nose as he was struggling his way through.
Yeah, I think for our listeners, I mean, there's lots of things that you can do, and you might already know that, but there's lots of things that we can do to find out what are our truest, deepest values and our deepest longings, and what is it that where our creativity lies. And a lot of it comes by relaxing a whole lot about the question and beginning to ask ourselves what feels good to me, where's fun, where does fun lie, where does interest lie, what things spark my creativity, what things spark my interest. Maybe we love to dance, or maybe we love to sing, maybe we love to paint, maybe we love to be out in nature, work with children, work with the elderly, create businesses, teach marketing. I mean, it's like, which things do we really feel are calling us? Because I really believe that life is constantly wants to show us, and we want to show ourselves where our greatest passion lies, what really constitutes passion and bliss for us. And if we follow and begin to do more and more of those things, we raise our vibration into this place where the things that are in our vortex, the things that are in our reservoir of infinite possibilities that we really want the most, begin to flood into our lives. They begin to seep into our lives, or literally, just arrive on our doorstep, where we start to realize, wow, this is something that really turns me on. I love this. And as you follow those passions, one really great exercise is to ask yourself, what would an ideal day look like for you? Take a piece of paper, and on one side of it, or take your computer and create a document and write, what would your ideal day look like? What would you be doing in the morning? What would you be doing in the afternoon and the evening? Who would you be with? Where would you be living? What kind of activities would you be doing if it was you were living the most ideal life you could imagine? And then do that exercise from time to time. It'll morph, it'll change, and you'll more and more see, God, this is what's calling me. This is the thing that's really calling me. How could I begin to have some of that in my life? If
Mm-hmm.
you really want to say grow things, begin to grow things, find a way to start growing something. If you want to work in some type of capacity, say with animals, you find some way in your community that you can begin to do volunteer work in that area. Just begin to include it in your life and see where it leads to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And there's a ton of exercises. Just by asking that question online in a search engine, you'll come up with endless amount of exercises you can do to find out what is your unique calling. What is it that you most want to do in your life right now, which is going to morph over the years, but start doing that thing and see if doors might open towards a way that you can make a living doing it, because it can. You might end up doing 5 different things and have 5 streams of income, but those 5 things might be 5 things that they're better than your current job, better than the way you're making money now. And you might end up making just as much. And I believe that when we really follow our greatest passion, that money will likely flow to us. I really believe that's kind of how it works, that you get really happy, you really in sync, and money just seems to be attached to that thing.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's really true. And in fact, if you're like where I was, 9.5 years ago, and to a certain extent I still am today because I'm still in the growth process. But if you're in a place where you're just not sure where your next step is, maybe a good place to start is with the free offer we've got. We've got the ebook that we just put out, Your Daily Dose of Happy, Real Success Stories of the Law of Attraction, and it's available free for this weekend, Friday through Monday, through the Memorial Day weekend. So maybe get a copy of the ebook and use that as inspiration. See what other people made for choices in their lives. Not necessarily for career choices, although there are stories about career choices in there, but just some of the choices they make. Some of the things that they face. See if any of those stories resonate in terms of, I've kind of been in a similar place to that. I understand what that's like. And when you read stories like that, they can not only entertain, but they can inspire us. They can inspire us to say, I actually get a new idea out of this. I hadn't thought of this before, but maybe I could look at X. X actually could possibly be interesting to me. So, that's one of the values of reading a really good book. And so you have the opportunity right now. You have something that is freely available, and you can get it all weekend long. It won't be freely available forever. After Monday, it goes back to having a price on it. But for now, you can get it for free. So take advantage of it. And if you want to know how to get it, well, the easy way to get it is through Amazon. But the easiest way, just go to the homepage of our website, loatoday.net. And you'll see a picture of the cover of the book there and a link to click. And you just click the link. It'll take you to the Amazon page, and boom, you just place your order. You're done. Free, no charge. Also, I also want to remind people that if you want to listen to us live as we're doing these programs, that's also where you do it, at the same place, that homepage. In fact, when you see that book cover, you'll see the player, the live broadcast player, right there on the page, and you'll see instructions on when the schedule is, and so you know when we're doing the podcast and how to tune in and how to even connect to us if you want to talk to us live, because we can do that. We love taking calls from people during the show. It doesn't happen a lot, but we get occasional calls, and it's wonderful to hear from listeners. So it's all right there. And finally, when you're there, make sure you subscribe. If you're not yet a subscriber, subscribe. Again, the instructions right there on the homepage. And once you subscribe, all of the podcasts always come to your smartphone, so you always have them available. And it's great for you're driving to work, or you're doing work around the house, or whatever it might be, playing it in the background, playing it on your earbuds or whatever. It's a great way to just keep getting your daily dose of happy while you're doing your life. So there's a few ideas on how to take that next step. Mm. So Tom, this is good. Happiness
is what we're really after, I think.
It is. It is.
It doesn't. Ultimately, I don't know if it matters all the different things we do. What matters is are we really finding a way to feel good? Like 24/7, as much as possible. We're finding a way to just
absolutely
be in a place of happiness.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. So thanks for bringing the topic up, Tom, because this is definitely timely today. And look forward to talking to you over the weekend. I hope you have a great weekend.
I hope you do too.
And
looking forward to it. Getting out in the mountains.
There you go.
Memorial Day weekend. Yeah.
And we hope you all have a great weekend and take advantage of the book offer. In the meantime, we will talk to you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.